We're working our way through the first volume of the Profound Treasury of the Ocean of Dharma. And we are today discussing the second and third of the three jewels as they are presented in the Sutra from the Recollection of the Noble Three Jewels. Just a word before we start. Next week, we will be, instead of class, we will be here for the refuge vows. And there are a number of people, about 15, who I think 16 maybe, who are taking refuge vows. And you are all invited to attend and witness the ceremony. And if you do, I invite you to bring a glass of something, because after the ceremony concludes, there will be some toasts. And you're invited to bring a glass and raise it in celebration for the people who are taking refuge. And whether you've taken it or not, you're invited, taken refuge, that is, you're invited to come and witness this ceremony. It's short, it's profound, and it's quite lovely. Tonight, we'll start again, as we did last week, with the recitation of the Sutra of the Recollection of the Noble Three Jewels. A sutra is meant to be a dialogue between the Buddha and his students. And so it's the word of the Buddha. Sometimes he says very little, sometimes he says more. And this one takes a particular form, and I'll bring it on screen and we can chant it together. So this is what we will be discussing this evening, the second and third parts of this sutra, Sutra of the Recollection of the Noble Three Jewels, and we'll chant the whole thing. It's quite short. We won't chant these headers, the Buddha. Oops. We'll just chant the text. I prostrate to the Omniscient One, thus the Buddha, Bhagavat, Tathagata, Arhat, Samyak Sambuddha, the learned and virtuous one, the Sugata, the knower of the world, the charioteer and tamer of beings, the unsurpassable one, the teacher of devas and humans, is the Buddha Bhagavat. The Tathagata is in accord with all merit. He does not waste the roots of virtue. He is completely ornamented with all patience. He is the basis of the treasures of merit. He is adorned with the excellent minor marks. He blossoms with the flowers of the major marks. His activity is timely and appropriate. Seeing him, he is without disharmony. He brings true joy to those who long with faith. His knowledge cannot be overpowered. His strength cannot be challenged. He is the teacher of all sentient beings. He is the father of bodhisattvas. He is the king of noble ones. He is the guide of those who journey to the city of nirvana. He possesses immeasurable wisdom. He possesses inconceivable confidence. His speech is completely pure. His melody is pleasing. One never has enough of seeing him. His form is incomparable. He is not stained by the realm of desire. He is not stained by the realm of form. He is not affected by the formless realm. He is completely liberated from suffering. He is completely and utterly liberated from the skandhas. The dhatus have no hold on him. His ayatanas are controlled. He has completely cut the knots. He is completely liberated from extreme torment. He is liberated from craving. He has crossed over the river. He is perfected in all the wisdoms. He abides in the wisdoms of the Buddha Bhagavats who arise in the past, present, and future. He does not abide in nirvana. He abides in the ultimate perfection. He dwells on the bhumi where he sees all sentient beings. All these are the perfect virtues of the greatness of the Buddha Bhagavat. The holy Dharma is good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end. Its meaning is excellent. Its words are excellent. It is uncorrupted. It is completely perfect and completely pure. It is completely pure. It completely purifies. The Bhagavat teaches the Dharma well. It brings complete vision. It is free from sickness. It is always timely. It directs one further. Seeing it fulfills one's purpose. It brings discriminating insight for the wise. The Dharma is spoken by the Bhagavat thoroughly, teaches training. It is renunciation. It causes one to arrive at perfect enlightenment. It is without contradiction. It is pithy. It is trustworthy and puts an end to the journey. As for the Sangha of the great Yana, they enter completely. They enter insightfully. They enter straightforwardly. They enter harmoniously. They are worthy of veneration with joined palms. They are worthy of receiving prostration. They are a field of glorious merit. They are completely capable of receiving all gifts. They are an object of generosity. They are always a great object of generosity. Thus, this concludes the Noble Sutra of the Recollection of the Noble Three Jewels. So, Perry?
Okay. The Dharma. For whatever reason, I was really moved just now by going over that again. The Dharma here, the Dharma means truth. It means the teaching of the Buddha. It means the path. But it is more than just the written or spoken teachings. There is a kind of a magic here. The Dharma is dynamic. It shows us the way and it inspires us to continue. So the Dharma could be studied as an intellectual pursuit, but that is not the heart of the Dharma. He says, the Dharma should inspire us and protect us from useless indulgence that has nothing to do with the path. So we use our intelligence to contemplate the teachings, but we don't indulge ourselves in a lot of speculation. We study, we contemplate, and practice is where we find true understanding. He says the Holy Dharma is good in the beginning if you join with it properly. These are the teachings the Buddha conveyed. They are also the teachings provided by the example of his life and his achievement of enlightenment. And it gives us the possibility of finding an end of suffering by following in his footsteps. Now, the Buddha was a human just like us. And in his teachings, he is saying, hey, I just discovered something wonderful and amazing. And here are some ideas you can use to arrive at the same experience. This is of course, kind of a rough way to put it, but I think of the Grand Canyon. Several years ago, I went to the Grand Canyon for the first time, and it was amazing. Now, many places I've visited with great expectations turned out to be just okay. But I'm telling you, if you walk up to the rim of the Grand Canyon for the first time, it will take your breath away. Now, here's where I might give you some ideas on how you can get there. And hopefully, I may have inspired you to take that journey. And this is the nature of the Dharma. The teachings cannot convey the actual experience of enlightenment. It is up to each one of us to find our way there using Dharma as a means. He says in the reading The Buddha is like a charioteer who knows the way. The path is the Dharma, and the rider is your companionship with the Buddha, and the chariot is your meditation cushion. I love that. But he doesn't say the rider is you. He says the rider is your companionship with the Buddha. Now that's something to contemplate. These teachings we are engaged in right now come from the Buddha, conveyed by teachers over the centuries and finally to us. There is great truth here. And each of us can find that truth for ourselves. Now, he says in the reading, in order to realize the true meaning of Dharma, we have to understand our mind and our state of being. How, you might ask? We meditate. We meditate with our eyes open physically and metaphorically. We meditate with an open heart. As we continue to practice with open eyes and an open heart, we learn more and more about our minds. We are making friends with ourselves in a very real way. When our thoughts or feelings arise, we see them. We don't ignore them. We don't discard them. We also do not engage with them. We see them. It is an act of generosity and compassion for ourselves to remain present to whatever is arising each now of the moments we pass through. Progress along the path is only possible with open eyes and an open heart. He says, Dharma is based on honesty, not having self-deception of any kind. So it's being on the spot, simple, direct. Now, this act of meditation, of coming back again and again to this, returning the attention to the breath over and over, we develop more and more awareness of the places we are coming from. We start to see the nature of thoughts and feelings that occupy us so much of the time, and we see that they are full of angst and happiness and frustration. In the lineage chant that we do here, there is a stanza that starts with, renunciation is the foot of Dharma. It's frequently translated as revulsion is the foot of Dharma, and this is what it's referring to. Begin to experience the unpleasant claustrophobic nature of our preoccupations. He says, the Dharma shows you the path of renunciation from samsaric involvement. It allows you to go all the way to enlightenment. So during our meditation, we also have experiences arriving at new understandings of a way of seeing things that we learned in our study. We hear the teachings, we read about it, we contemplate it, and then in meditation, a more spacious environment is created in which we can start to genuinely experience them. He says the holy Dharma is good in the beginning if you join properly. And that's what I've been talking about here, is the attitude. It is good in the middle because you are on the path, and it is good in the end because it frees you from pain and torment. Now, he also says, the Dharma puts an end to the journey between ourself and other, which is samsaric. So you see it as about changing our allegiance. And that change is born out of the confidence that develops after having spent a certain amount of time experiencing the truth of the teachings. We see that the stuff really works. As John has said, it works despite yourself. You just do it. Now, what's also very important, he says the brilliance and magnificence of the Dharma is so great it can seem to be too much. But I myself gave up at the age of 13. Now, by the way, in all the study I've done, this is the only time I have seen him refer directly to his own experience. So I'm sure there's more in there, but I myself gave up at the age of 13. What did he give up? You see, there can be a kind of a struggle here, a resistance to change, or just finding the sheer volume of these teachings is overwhelming. After all, the title of this book contains the phrase, the ocean of Dharma. There's a lot here that can seem far-fetched or inscrutable. So there can be an argument. This is the ego speaking. It's all about reinforcing I. I agree. I don't agree. I don't know. This doesn't make sense to me. And that is what needs to go. Giving up means just do it. It works. Now, I guess I should say this does not mean that we're not saying that you have to have perfect faith and never question or anything like that. It means engage fully with open eyes. Find the truth there for yourself, and at some point, give up self-doubt. The sense, he says, the sense of poverty has to be given up. Once you do that, your thirst is quenched and the way to proceed further becomes very natural and ordinary. That there is a kind of a magic here by coming back again and again to this. We are rediscovering some of the qualities of a child, the open eyes, the taking everything in. Everything is new, fresh. Our curiosity develops. He says in the reading, the moment you wake up, the moment you open your eyes, that first thought before the commentary starts, that is what you come back to. And at the end of this chapter, he just says that quality of first thought is happening here and now. It is happening all over the place. John? Or should we take questions?
Let's go on and do the last chapter where we have discussion. Yeah. The more you study the Dharma, and there's so much of it, the more one is impressed by the profundity. And I want to come back to that last quote that that Barry made. The sense of poverty has to be given up. We tend to feel as we read this, well, I can never be that. I've got too much neurosis. My thoughts won't stop. I. That sense of poverty, of lack of confidence, has to go so that one understands, knows that one is embodying what these teachings are pointing out. And when that begins to happen, then the teachings really begin to come alive. Before that, you might say the teachings make sense and they're helpful and they help us understand our lives and our minds and maybe live a better life. But when one begins to give up the poverty and actually begins to become these teachings, that is a profound change that he is asking us to make. And that is when we begin to actually realize the teachings. He started out this section by saying, we are kind of saying, we're traveling with the Buddha. We could share the Buddha's mind. We could be a fellow traveler with the Buddha. What a radical idea. And these teachings, the Dharma, is all about what that looks like and how we could do it. And we could do it. And it means being open, intelligent, confident, completely present, without aggression, the aggression of ego, of I, utterly responsive to this world, celebrating its constant newness and beauty. All this and more is possible. One unique thing about these teachings is how over the centuries they have evolved. This is because the Buddha was a human being. He wasn't a god or God. And his words are not meant to be writ in stone, but rather understood. In fact, after the Buddha's death, in about 480 BC, the teachings hadn't been written down very much. There wasn't really writing going on. I mean, there was no paper, there was no printing presses. And mostly the teachings were remembered by his students. And it turned out there was disagreement among them about what the Buddha had actually said. And ultimately, the Sangha, the community of students, monks, nuns, fractured. And the period after the Buddha's death is known as the period of the 18 schools, because there were supposedly 18 different schisms. One of these schools, called the Doctrine of the Elders, the School of the Elders, went to Ceylon. We went to southern India and from there made its way to Ceylon, and then from there into Southeast Asia. And it became what we now call the Theravada. Theravada is the Pali for Slaviravada, which was the Sanskrit, which was the name of that school. Slaviravada means the doctrine of the elders. Another one of those schools, which traveled up into northern India, was called the doctrine that everything exists. Sarvasti means everything, Vada. And that school wound up going to Tibet and forming the basis for the Hinayana teachings of the Buddha. Another school called the Mahasangikas, it means the greater Sangha, the adherents of the greater Sangha, is the third one that is really important and survived, evolved into the Mahayana, the greater vehicle, it's called. And that school went to China around the time of Christ, and from there to Japan, Korea, and also to Vietnam, where it evolved into Zen in Japan and Korean forms and Vietnamese forms. Also, yogis in the forests began taking Hindu forms and converting them and using them to express their understanding of the Buddhist teachings. These were renunciates, yogis, and what they conceived of and created became what we call the Vajrayana, which is also called the Tantrayana, Tantra vehicle, or the Mantrayana, the vehicle of the mantra. And this came out of the forests in around the 7th century AD and into the Buddhist schools and monasteries. And in the 7th century and 8th centuries, it was taken to Tibet. So then when the Muslim invasion really effectively wiped Buddhism out of India in the 11th century, it had already migrated and split up into all these different versions. This is the Dharma. The Dharma is continually evolving. Each time these different schools evolved, they found different ways of putting it, different ways of expressing it. And they became more and more sophisticated. And basically, when we learn and study this 3-yana path, the Hinayana, the Mahayana, and the Vajrayana, we're studying a continual up-leveling of the way in which it is put. The essence of it probably is staying the same. Hard to tell because it's all only communicated in words, but it's experienced. And those words become more and more subtle and beautiful and profound. I once asked Trungpa Rinpoche, I said, I kind of get the impression that a lot of these, great teachers, some of them maybe were sitting around talking, and one of them says, well, what do you think about this way of putting it, of changing it? And then I say, yeah, that's pretty good. And then it becomes written down. And he said, yeah, that's probably the way it happened, more or less. And when we get to the Mahayana, which we will, when we get to volume 2, you'll begin to see this. We're going to study the Madhyamaka teachings of what's so-called middle way, the Prajna Paramita, like the Heart Sutra. And we'll study the mind-only teachings, Yogacara, Chittamatra, they're called, which are the 2 main schools of the Mahayana, and they have sub-schools too. And then beyond that is Tantra. So people studied these teachings, they practiced them, they developed the confidence that Trungpa Rinpoche alluded to when he said that sentence, he wrote that sentence that Barry quoted, the sense of poverty has to be given up. Once you do that, your thirst is quenched and the way to proceed further becomes very natural and ordinary. The sense of poverty, what it means is you keep saying, I'm not that kind of person. I don't understand all that. I can't be that. I've got too much ego. That has to be given up. And once you do that, the thirst is quenched. See, as long as you're saying that to yourself, you feel thirsty. You feel impoverished. You feel like I'm just this little wretch who doesn't really understand it. And that feeling is a feeling of poverty and of thirst, hunger. So when you give up that self-attack and begin to realize that you can understand and embody these teachings, he says, your thirst is quenched and the way to proceed further becomes very natural and ordinary. This is what it means to be Sangha, is to share this problem, this inspiration, and this path forward. And this is the third jewel, the Sangha. He says, once you've taken refuge vows, you become a member of the Sangha. He means officially. You're an official member. You could be a member before the refuge vows too. He says you should practice simplicity, free from the complications of life, and spend your time practicing and teaching others if you can. Now, when this sutra was written and spoken and written down at a time when the Sangha was a collection of monastics, monks and nuns. It wasn't lay people like us. And so you bear in mind that part of what is happening here when we read this section is a description of that male-female monastic community. So there are 10 conditions, which are described in 3 sections. Entering properly, which has to do with the individual and how you see yourself. Being worthy of veneration, which has to do with how you relate with the other people in the Sangha, people around you. And receiving generosity, which is how you relate with people outside the Sangha. Entering properly, it has 4 main points. The first one is that you don't hold back. You don't hold on to your ego, or as he puts it, your theism. Your theism is your desire to be saved by someone else. And really what this is about is that you realize that you contain enlightenment, sanity, awakening inside you, and that you can do this without any help from outside, because there is no help coming from outside. It has to be done by each one of us individually. He says, any theistic way of saving yourself is completely out of the question. And by that he means that you would sort of do what you think is prescribed by some external source so that you get a reward from that source. That's completely out of the question. It all comes from within. And it also has the sense of entering gracefully or beautifully into discipline, meditation, and knowledge. First, you make up your mind perfectly and completely, and then you get in. The Sangha enters insightfully. That means that they're intelligent. They understand these teachings, the subtlety, the depth. And especially that applies to meditation. That we understand what meditation is. The complete act of coming present with confidence. The confidence is so important. And the confidence is not an ego type of confidence, like saying, yes, I can do it, aren't I terrific, and all that. It's simply knowing that you are fundamentally Buddha inside, fundamentally awake, and that you can rest in that with confidence. Entering straightforwardly. Well, this just comes naturally, without telling lies, without dishonesty. And entering harmoniously. And this perhaps is the most important part, I think, of the sense of Sangha, community, which is friendship. Friendship with humor, with appreciation. And he says that this is possible because we are practicing shamatha vipassana meditation, mindfulness, awareness, meditation. And when one practices that, you're coming back from thoughts of the past and the future, those anxious thoughts, into the present moment with awareness of this present moment. And what happens is that your body and mind become synchronized. What does that mean? That means that there isn't this I who is thinking about, gee, how do I look today? And do people going to like me? And, how do I feel about myself and all that? There is a complete synchronization. Body and mind are one. So there isn't this split between the thinker and the material. And when that happens, there's tremendous relaxation, friendliness to oneself, which automatically becomes friendliness to others, and humor. The first time I ever heard Trungpa Rinpoche speak was here in New York in 1970. He had just arrived from Canada, and his topic was a sense of humor. And I didn't feel like the talk was at all funny, and I didn't understand why he was talking about a sense of humor. So the second category, second of the main of these categories of the 10, is being worthy of veneration. They are worthy of veneration with joined palms. This is the members of the Sangha. And they are worthy of receiving prostration. That is, that we begin to see in others what we are finding in ourselves, the confidence, the ease, the awareness, the awakening. And we begin to actually respect and enjoy that in the people that we meet. We begin to fall in love. Their enlightenment becomes, their awakening becomes ours. It's a reflection back and forth. And then we can actually fall in love with each other. Deep friendship with humor. And then the third category, receiving generosity, they are a field of merit, a field of openness. That's what merit means. It means that there is no ego aggrandizement. There is no machination. There is no, subtext going on in the mind of what can I get out of this and how can I. It's complete, open awareness, which is the deepest kind of friendship. And so they're a field of openness, of merit. He says, if you are kind and friendly with somebody, in turn, they will be kind and friendly to you. I mean, isn't it true? There's a terrific practice that I've talked about before. It's one of the slogans of Atisha. It says, drive all blames into one. And that means is that when you're in a situation where you feel that another person has wronged you, is at fault, you take the blame. How's that one? Really hard to do. When he writes it in this book, the book is called Training the Mind. You can read it yourself. He says, you can do it. I've done it thousands of times myself. Well, I've tried it. And I want to tell you, it's very hard to take the blame when you know that that other person is at fault. Even if you bear some of the blame, it's really hard to take it. And every time I've done it, it's opened up friendship. It's really weird, unexpected. I wind up parting with that person, waving goodbye. So I encourage you to try it. You can take the blame in any situation. Now, there might be situations where you don't want to take the blame. I don't want to get you sued. But 99 times out of 100, there are no practical consequences. It's just a matter of pride and hurt. So they are completely capable of giving all gifts. And he says it's because they're sane and their conduct is pure. It's just like that thing of taking the blame. The only way that you can do it is to give up your pride, which is so hard to do. I testify. Try it. And if you do, report, if you can, if you feel like sharing what happens. You're in an argument with somebody and you feel like they've done something wrong. And then you take the blame. Say, it's my fault. I'm sorry. I should have. I understand. whatever you want to say. It can be so hard.
They feed it, so you make it.
And they are an object of generosity. They're perfectly worthy object of generosity because they express and spread the most basic sanity, the members of the Sangha. So we're inspired when we have this kind of open communication with other people to be generous. He says, and they are always a great object of generosity. And what he means by that is that you're not going into this to try and get something out of it. It's just simply generosity for its own sake. There's no barter mentality. There's no professional fundraiser mentality, like I'm going to do this and get something back. So I think above all, the Sangha becomes a very inspiring situation of people who are actually realizing these teachings. And that's inspiring. It's inspiring when you are and when you see others doing it. It's inspiring because people are opening themselves and being here for each other and being generous and kind. Friendship. So I'll stop there and we could have a discussion, and this is an early stop. So Barry and I and Laura will try and spot people who want to say something. Raise your hand, either your virtual or your real hand, is whatever you like. Steph, unmute yourself, please.
Hi, thank you. I was thinking about what you were saying about taking the blame. And now I fully recognize the value of forgiveness. But can't taking the blame kind of backfire? Like, if you're the sort of person who all your life you felt everything was your fault. Number one, this does nothing to talk about an inaccurate representation of reality, but also, doesn't it kind of give you a kind of a control that if you say that something was your fault, then it supposes there might have been something you could have done about it. And it gives you a false sense of control over events that you may have no control over. So I'm curious about, I'm still chewing on that thought. Thank you.
I think you have to try it. Just give it a shot and see what happens. And you can do it in a relatively trivial but perhaps irritating situation. I'll give you an example of an easy one. I mean, it wasn't easy for me, but maybe it sounded that way for you. I was at an airport and I was picking up a rental car. And I went to the desk and there was Budget, Thrifty, Dollar, Hertz, Avis, all the different rental cars. I was getting a Thrifty car. All the other counters were empty. There was one or two people serving, but there was nobody, no customers. But at the Thrifty counter, there was a long line and there was only one guy. And I was in a hurry. So I stood in that line just getting madder and madder. Why couldn't they have put more people on, you know? And when it finally got there, I actually tried going over to some of the other counters and seeing if I could rent a car, but they were more expensive. So I came back to Thrifty because I wanted to save the money. And when I finally got up there, I unloaded on that guy. I said, doesn't Thrifty have enough people, that you can serve all these people? Look at all this time I've been waiting. It's here almost a half an hour, like that. And he got very defensive, Oh, I'm doing the best I can. And then I thought, take the blame. And I gritted my teeth because I was really irritated and angry with it. And I said, I'm sorry I was rude, or something like that. And I said, you're doing the best you can. There were a lot of people. And I said, I apologize. And it was very hard for me to say that because I was angry. And I expected him to just be cold and listen and go about and give me my car. And he said, I'm sorry you had to wait. He said, I know it's irritating. And he said, thank you for saying that to me. By the time I left, we were waving goodbye to each other. So all I'm saying is you try it. You try it out. 9 times out of 10, or maybe more than that, it has to do with your pride, your irritation that you're giving up. And it's not a matter of really being hard on yourself. What you're doing is you're being kind to the other person, or trying to, in spite of yourself.
Well, I can see this in terms of taking responsibility for your own response in a situation like that. Because actually the line wasn't his fault either. And that is something I can readily see why that would be a favorable and more peaceful outcome, for sure. Ouch, excuse me. My cat just bit my foot. All right, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just would like to say that in response to Steph, that taking the blame is not appropriate in every situation. That especially for some people who tend to be more submissive or being browbeaten or something. I mean, there's, it's not, it's like there can be idiot compassion. Well, there can be a kind of equivalent idiot taking blame. So it depends, but certainly where there is a argument going on, then that's a good time to think about it. And I would like to just take the opportunity. I once had the experience of being in an argument with my girlfriend, and we were furious. We were nose to nose shouting at each other. And at some point, some weird reason, the phrase Tong Lin popped into my mind, and I looked in her eyes and I saw pain. And everything changed. And I apologized. So there can be that kind of shift on the spot. Oh,
You
Tony?
can't anticipating an effect. You just got to do it for its own sake.
Hi, thanks, John and Barry. Yeah, I've heard it said that you can learn more about yourself on the longest line in the supermarket than you can learn in a lot of other places, and I think there's truth to that. But I'd like to, if I could address this, John, can you speak a little bit to first thought? I had always thought that first thought, best thought was something that Trungpa Rinpoche had said, and actually I think I've come to understand it's from Allen Ginsberg, but the notion of first thought, is that first thought upon awakening? Is it first thought in a fresh situation? I mean, could you speak a little bit to the notion of first thought?
Yeah. Mostly we are engaged in chains of thought. The first thought begets another, begets another. And I think what, that phrase arose in a conversation between Trungpa Rinpoche and Allen Ginsberg. And the idea is that the first thought, before you go off into a chain, can be an object of inspiration, a trigger. I think we each have to experience this in our own minds. And it really has to do with giving up. The only way that this happens is when we give up self-condemnation, self-criticism, self-judgment, and just see what is happening in our minds. And when we do that, the thoughts arise and they go just so fast. And then you might feel like, gee, I wish I could hold on to that because I'd like to get something out of it. And it's all ready. Then you're into second and third and fourth thoughts. It's in that initial moment of just seeing it and letting it go, which it will instantaneously, that we actually begin to get a picture of our minds. So I think each one of us has to experience that in meditation. It's why we're enjoined again and again as we sit, not to be critical of our minds, not to try and get rid of thought, but to be aware of thoughts just as we are of visual objects, sounds, bodily sensations, smells and tastes. You just see them. And the same with the thoughts, without doing anything about them. You neither follow them, nor do you try and stamp them out. You just see them. And they self-liberate like all other things. They self-liberate is the phrase that comes in the Dharma, the teachings. That means they just go poof, they disappear. It could almost be disappointing. You would like to get something more out of it, and there's another thought.
Thank you. I had been, when I initially was taught meditation, I was initially taught to label thoughts. So that's still relevant in this situation, isn't it? Right. Okay, label them, but not judge them on good, bad, or indifferent. Right.
You neither follow nor do you repress them.
Okay.
Just using the labeling technique as a way of doing neither of those two things, following nor repressing.
Okay. Thank you.
Kurt, you had your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. See, I'm not sure how to phrase this, but I'm curious of the idea of the confidence that we are traveling with the Buddha, and to hold that confidence without the intellectual understanding of all these aspects of Buddhism. It gets so complex and there's so many layers and layers upon this, which brings up that idea is how could I ever get this, because I can't keep track of it all. And that idea of carrying the confidence, I guess where I go with it is what Barry was saying of meditating with an open heart and trusting that we know this within without being able to intellectually understand it or articulate it. And I'd just like to hear some more thoughts around that.
The word for confidence in Tibetan is ziji. Great word, huh? Z-I-J-I, if you Romanize it. Ziji. When Trungpa Rinpoche first introduced Shambhala teachings, and created these weekend programs called the Shambhala training levels, there was a poster that was put up in Boulder advertising them. And it was a calligraphy of the word ziji. And it was his interpretation of it. What it looked like was a bullseye with an arrow going through it like this. And I'm thinking, what? And it meant confidence. This was the slogan for Shambhala training. And I was thinking, why confidence? You know, I mean, why not insight? Why not prajna? Why not transcendent knowledge? Why not shunyata? Why not selflessness? You know, why not generosity? Confidence? You know, what does that have to do with anything? At the time, I had a different body, and I was a rock climber, spending a lot of time out there on the cliffs, especially down in El Dorado Canyon. Used to go there after work with a buddy of mine, climbed till 8, 9 at night. And there were some terrific climbers. There was a community who knew each other. And there was this one guy who was a boulderer. Boulderer means that you're climbing without ropes or protection because you're climbing low down. You know, you can always jump off, although people get up pretty high when they boulder. And you're doing very, very, very difficult problems. And I watched this guy. He was an 18-year-old kid, and I was about 35. And I was watching this guy, and he just flowed across the rock. The most difficult stuff. And I realized that was confidence. And then I had an experience where some friends of mine took me out, and I said, what are we going to climb? And they said, oh, we'll climb this thing. And I didn't know what it was. And I was a little nervous, but I went up it. And I came down, and I found out that I climbed something much harder than I thought I could climb. And I began to learn that confidence is magic. And there's a tremendous amount of teaching about confidence. And what they're talking about is the confidence of being able to be here in the present moment. There was this Polish guy, positive psychologist, who conceived of the concept of flow, which everybody knows about now. You know, you get into flow states. Those are confidence states, to some degree anyhow, having to do with athleticism. But we can have confidence in anything that we do. And there's a marvelous page in Shambhala, The Path of the Warrior. I've sent it out any number of times. And if you put your name in chat and want this page, I'll send it out to you now. And what it is Trungpa Rinpoche received these Dharma containing the Shambhala teachings. Dharma are the hidden teachings, the hidden treasures. And one of them was called, the first one actually, was called the Letter of the Black Ashe. That symbol that Barry has behind his head. Where is he, Barry? There it is. That's the Black Ashe. And this text was called the Letter of the Black Ashe. And in it, in the very first page, it's all about confidence. It's beautiful. And these texts are secret. You can't have them or read them until you go through some certain trainings. But Rinpoche gave permission for that page to be published in this book, Shambhala, The Path of the Warrior. If you own the book, you've got that page. On the left side is the Tibetan, on the right side is the English translation. And if you put your email in chat, I'll send you a PDF of that page. And it's all about how in the very beginning of the beginning, which is primordial space. Oh, there it is. Thanks, Barry. That's the Tibetan. Can't you read that? There it is. From the great cosmic mirror. This is this. We're sitting in the cosmic mirror. Remember, the mirror is the space in which the appearances arise and pass away in the present moment. So, from the great cosmic mirror, without beginning and without end, that's where we're sitting now. Human society became manifest. At that time, liberation and confusion arose. When fear and doubt occurred, toward the confidence which is primordially free, that confidence is there. It's part of us. It's primordially free and it's always there. But when doubt, fear and doubt arose towards that confidence, countless multitudes of cowards, what does it say, arose. Cowards are people who feel like, I can't do it. I'm not good enough. Those countless multitudes of cowards hid themselves in caves and jungles. They killed their brothers and sisters and ate their flesh. When you have self-doubt, it turns inward and outward. They followed the example of beasts. They provoked terror in each other. Thus they took their own lives. They kindled a great fire of hatred. They constantly roiled the river of lust. They wallowed in the mud of laziness. The age of famine and plague arose. Of those who were dedicated to the primordial confidence, the many hosts of warriors, some went to highland mountains and erected beautiful castles of crystal. Some went to the lands of beautiful lakes and islands and erected lovely palaces. Some went to the pleasant plains and sowed fields of barley, rice, and wheat. They were always without quarrel, ever loving and very generous. Without encouragement, through their self-existing inscrutability, they were always devoted to the imperial rigden. The imperial rigden is the symbol of awakened mind, of enlightenment. And their self-existing inscrutability means when you come present, you don't have any agendas going on in your mind. You're inscrutable. People look at you and they can't read thoughts behind your eyes because you have no agenda. So we can get rid of that there. That's good. Thank you, Barry. So that's the importance of confidence, of ZG.
Thank you, John. That's great.
You're welcome. It's beautiful teaching. This is very tantric. This is really, the teaching of confidence is utterly tantric, and it's the core. When you are meditating and you're awake and you're aware, it is confidence. It's not a confidence that says, I can do this. That's false confidence. It's like when you climb stairs, you're not saying to yourself, I can do this. You just know you can do it. That's the quality of true confidence. They say that the true confidence is silent. Anything else?
Mark?
Hi, everybody. I was just, people are talking about the complexity and getting caught up in kind of how am I ever going to accomplish this? But I just wrote down a few things, and I know they come from the classes that we've done together, but they may be overly simple, but whatever. Anyway, I just wrote the Dharma path is a 1,000,000-mile journey to the meditation pillow at my feet. That it can be really complex, and then on the other hand, our enlightenment can happen the next second. It's not something like we read all the books and then we become enlightened necessarily. It could be just spontaneous, depending on each person.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you. Well, friends, anybody else? Oh, there's Judy. Ms.
And-
Jurna.
And Steve.
Oh, and Steve. Okay. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Judy.
Hi. I found myself in a strange position that sort of shook my confidence. I go to a caregivers group at Gilda's Club because all the people there are the caregivers of cancer patients. And my husband was a cancer patient too. And I noticed that and made some, I thought, small comments here and there that what everyone was so frightened of was change. And one of the people got interested in what I was talking about and actually started going to the Westchester Buddhist Center and meditating and so forth. And other people in the group started picking up these ideas and found them very helpful. And I was a little shocked that as things have developed over a couple of years, I'm like the introducer of Buddhism there. And I feel not completely confident to do that, but it has I see it working in their lives, how they're less frightened for owning up to that sort of thing. And I nevertheless, I guess it's a lack of confidence, feel funny being in that role. But there I am. So, I mean, with those 10 people, it's very strange.
No, I think it's really wonderful because you have a genuine inspiration that has come from your involvement with meditation and the teachings. And that's communicating to these people. And you remember there was a line in the Trungpa Rinpoche's explanation tonight where he said, when you enter the Sangha, one of the things you can do is you can become a teacher. You can help others. And you can do it with circumspection, but not with self-doubt, give that up, but just with intelligence about what you know and what you can communicate, your experience. And if you want help, you can reach out to people like me and Barry and Laura and others, and we can give you help. For instance, we can help you learn how to be a meditation instructor. And there are other people here who are in positions where they might want to do that too, to teach other people how to meditate.
Yeah, well, it isn't that they formally, are asking for meditation teaching, but it's just the ideas of their situation and how to deal with it. And these ideas, I see them much less panicky about the imminence of change in their lives, which is one, and the fear that they're going to lose their partner. But I kind of realized, when they're talking about the group and what they're grateful for and so forth, and they're coming up with all this stuff, and attributing it to ideas that I put out there. So, you know, this whole idea of like even unintentionally doing this has had these results that just kind of, what? You know, surprised me.
It's wonderful when you have the opportunity to help others. It's a great gift to you.
Yeah. Very surprising.
Yeah, it's terrific. Thank you.
Judith, can I just give a reflection here? It just sounds like there's, like you didn't have agenda when you were sharing it with them. You know, you weren't, ego wasn't a part of it saying, oh, now I'm going to be their teacher, or I want them to think this way. And that's sort of your truth or your authenticity, or the fact that you've lived through those experiences. You know, we talked about the Dharma's there, and then we can recognize it and feel, yeah, that. And then it sounds like at the end of the day, then the ego comes back and goes, what? Really? Me? You know?
Yeah, it's strange, but I was kind of relating it to confidence and non-confidence also. But these chapters help.
Yeah, and I guess I don't know if this is really how it was for you, but when you were communicating it, you didn't, that's what's confidence, is being in touch with that truth. You know, there wasn't a question of, am I qualified to do this or not? That the doubt or the lack of confidence, at least for me, is when I'm in my head and I'm start observing, I'm going, oh my God, people being influenced by me, you know. But what came before, that's confidence, where you're doing, and you're coming from that place rather than the thought of, what am I doing? That's my shot at connecting into confidence. And I'm going to stand by it confidently. Okay.
That's great. Yeah. Thanks for that, Laura.
Steve, you had something.
Yes, the whole idea of the confidence, it seems to me at times that can lead to a sense of pride, which can be a problem. And I was wondering if that comes from what you mentioned before, a false sense of confidence.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you said it well. But the real confidence is silent. And it has to do with our confidence that we're here, we're awake, that the situation, whatever it may be, is fundamentally workable, that we can behave appropriately.
Yes, the comment of it being silent, I think, really says a lot about the form of confidence.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
Well, friends.
Well, Dan,
Is there one more?
I think Dan had his hand up.
Yeah, hi.
Okay.
Yeah, for a sec, I'll be quick. First of all, thank you, John, and everybody. These are really great teachings. But, you know, there's something that Yangtze Rinpoche said once that always sticks with me. He wasn't talking about confidence, but he was talking about confusion. And he said, you know, why you know, why do we have to be confused, you know? And then like the opposite of it, he said, why can't we just be compassionate all the time? Like compassionate was the opposite of confusion. And I think, and it just struck me now as you're talking about that confidence is the opposite of confusion. And so therefore I put confidence and compassion as the same. That confidence is compassion. You know, being compassionate all the time seems to me like anyway, it's just I just wanted to put that out there. It sticks with me.
Very good. Well, everyone, so next week, you're all invited to come to the refuge ceremony, whether you're taking refuge or not, and celebrate. And it'll be at the same time as the class, 7:30 Eastern, 7:35. And bring a glass of something to raise and a toast to. We'll be toasting the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, as well as the refugees, people taking refuge. And I think that's about it. If anybody has any questions about the refuge ceremony, feel free to contact me. So let's close with the dedication of merit. How easy is it for you to get that up, Barry? Let's see.
Yeah,
Do this.
uh,
Here we go.
there you go.
By this merit, may all obtain omniscience. May it defeat the enemy wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. By the confidence of the golden sun of the great East, may the lotus garden of the Rigton's wisdom bloom. May the dark ignorance of sentient beings be dispelled. May all beings enjoy profound, brilliant glory. So to take Ellen's words, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
With joined palms, we go to each other with veneration. So here's Sangha. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank
Thank
you very much.
Night.
Thank you, everyone.
Happy
Thank you.
Thanksgiving. Everybody be safe.
Oh yeah, happy Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah, Thanksgiving.
Almost.
Oh yeah, Thanksgiving. Great.
Oh, that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay warm.
So
Be
long.
warm.
Right. Be safe.
Thank
Take care.
Bye all.
Yeah, Peter.
Barry,
Yes,
I can see it's recording. Did you do that?
yes.
Thank you.
I noticed that it wasn't, so I started. Gonna stop it now.
Great.